Congress then started meddling in banks' internal affairs. They decided that they would have the right to set bonuses, to set wages, to control these companies' operations. And so the banks started saying, we don't want the money after all. Forget it. This is a bad idea. A lot of them wanted to start paying back the money so they wouldn't have to follow the government's rules. So what did the federal government do? They said, we won't let you pay it back. We're going to keep the rules in place, we won't let you pay back the money. Now, in just the last few days, they've started allowing some of these banks to finally pay back some of the money. Now, in some ways, this whole TARP program was, for politicians, kind of the perfect government program, because there's no way to tell whether it worked or not. But let's look at what libertarians said about TARP before it happened and what actually happened. Congress meddling? Check. Political considerations determining who gets money? Check. Smaller banks rising to meet the credit challenge, starting to loan more as bigger banks had trouble. That also happened. What about the moral hazard argument that if we bail out banks now, they're going to start making riskier loans in the future, and that's going to require even more bailouts down the road? Well, it hasn't happened yet, but I think Americans should check back with us libertarians down the road and see what went on there, because we were right on everything else. And my second example comes from March 2003. Now, this is not one where libertarians are completely united, but most libertarians opposed the Bush administration's decision to invade Iraq, whereas 72% of Americans thought it was the right decision at the time. It was 72 to 22. Only 22% of Americans said it was not the right decision at that time. So libertarians actually made up a big percentage of people opposed to the Iraq War. We said that Iraq did not pose a direct threat to the U.S., that if Saddam Hussein did have weapons of mass destruction, they couldn't reach U.S. soil. So it really wasn't justified going in and removing him from power. And some of us, like Harry Brown, said that there were no weapons of mass destruction, and that prediction was eventually proved correct. We also said that the nation building wasn't a justifiable use of taxpayer money, that the government was likely to mess it up, that at best Iraq would end up being another Bosnia, another sort of protectorate of the United Nations where there would be an internationally appointed dictator but no responsible government there. And at worst it would, and probably more likely, it would end up being a Middle Eastern quagmire. So we all know what happened there. By December 2008, 64% of Americans had come to our point of view and said that the Iraq War was a mistake. Now, it's deeply regrettable that the mistake was made, and we certainly didn't cheer for the outcome. We didn't cheer for it to fail. But we knew that it was more likely to fail than not going into this. And so maybe the politicians should listen to us a little more next time. That's right. We told them. And my third example comes from the state of New Hampshire, I'm sorry to say. In 2007, a new majority took over in the New Hampshire legislature, and the Democratic leadership decided they needed to spend a lot more money. They increased the state budget by more than 17%, the largest increase in state history. And libertarians said, you're going to run up a big debt, your revenue projections are too rosy, we're going to go into debt, and there are going to be more tax increases just a couple of years down the line. We saw it coming. Well, I was just speaking with one of our elected representatives to the State House today, Jen Coffey, and she told me that the legislature, the Democratic legislature, has just approved $200 million in tax and fee hikes to cover the big deficit that they created back in 2007. So I'm sorry to say, New Hampshire, we told you so. So we're going to fight these battles everywhere, right? These battles are going to happen in New Hampshire. Nothing that's happened obviously can't be undone. But what's important to stress here is that we've had some defeats, but every time we've seen what was coming in advance. How do we turn these defeats into victory? I mean, libertarians seem to have an uncanny knack for prognosticating the consequences of public policies. Now, I think probably the reason for that is that we happen to be right. But what that tells us is that our philosophy, libertarianism, if you want to call it that, is not just a set of beliefs. It's also a way of understanding the world, especially the political and economic world. And that's something that has a lot of value. Over time, people are going to look at that and say, libertarians happen to be right most of the time. Now, in the national scene, people ignore us, right? I mean, we're drowned out. No one listens to libertarians. We're right about all these things, but who cares? We can't get that message out. But here in New Hampshire, we can, and that's where the Free State Project comes in, I think. Right? If we see something coming down the pike, I think we should thoughtfully, carefully, and boldly predict the consequences of these policies. We should get that message out there. And there should be a label to it so that people can tell who is right about this. So we say, libertarians are saying that these spending increases are going to cause tax increases down the line. Or they're saying that if we get medical marijuana passed, it's not going to cause chaos to break out in the streets. And that is a piece of good news, by the way. Medical marijuana did pass both houses of the state legislature this year. So then when our predictions keep coming true over and over again, and we have this media here in New Hampshire, right? We've got the media, everything from the Ridley Report to the Grafton Gazette, the whole gamut. Not to mention the blogs. Right? We're getting our message out there. We're part of the conversation. People are going to say, look, I want to be part of that winning team. Right? We're the winning team. We're winning when it comes to actually figuring out how the world is working, what happens when politicians do the things they do. People are going to want to be part of that. Now, of course, winning in that sense often means that it's a little depressing, right? Because we see the bad things are going to happen, the bad things happen, and we say, we told you so. But over time, as more and more people say, look, those libertarians, they knew it was going to happen again and again and again. They must have something there. We're going to be a winning team in another sense. We're going to win the intellectual war for the hearts and minds of the population. So that's the only thought I wanted to leave you with tonight. Thanks.